Jay Jaffe from Fangraphs.com. You can follow on Twitter at J_Jaffe. And also check out his beer at Untapped. He's got terrific reviews and write-ups for all the beers he gets to try. We'll do that at the end of our segment like is tradition here on Sports Talk. But Jay, great to have you back. And, now that baseball is finally here, we'll be able to talk about games next week, but we're starting to see full workouts now. I'm excited. Suddenly you feel more and more like it's finally here. It's finally coming. And, for a lot of fans, they'll get a chance to enjoy watching baseball games and spring training here in just a couple days.
Yeah, it's, I think we've, so far the effects of the coronavirus, we haven't seen any outbreaks. The intake testing was pretty clean. I think 9 players and 4 staffers in all, which out of the 1,000 people tested, that's pretty solid. The exhibitions will be as meaningless as ever, but it's nice to have baseball back. It'll be nice to have baseball back, even just watching pitcher fielding practice and batting practice and all that. The footage that we're getting from Florida and Arizona, it's a breath of fresh air.
It is. And yet, as much as we're excited about baseball, you get that story involving the Mariners that is so unfortunate. Yeah. And, whenever you've got somebody in the front office that's disparaging his own team, it really makes you shake your head and wonder. And then you get a guy like Jared Kelenic, the top prospect, who is upset because he's done what a lot of top prospects are doing, speaking out against his team, manipulating service time to try to get that extra year of control. Not the first time we've seen it. A lot of clubs have done it, but this is not good because whenever one of the top prospects in the game is openly speaking out against it at spring training, just a bad look on your team.
Yeah, I mean the Kevin Mather video that resulted in his firing was just a series of reprehensible comments about just all this inside baseball. There was a window into just how out of touch the upper executive level can be. I mean, there was racism in it. There was blatant anti-labor stuff with the service time manipulation stuff, and there was enough to offend dozens of players in the Mariners system. And as one of my colleagues described it, it was like 45 minutes of watching a man light his own ass on fire. Just unbelievable stuff. The Mariners basically were able to distance themselves from him in short order, but they still have the burden of proof is still on them, in terms of how they handle these players going forward. And there are some other things going on in that organization, discrimination related lawsuits and things like that don't reflect well in the organization. They have the longest playoff drought of any team. So this is a serious bummer. I have family in Seattle. I have a lot of colleagues who came up blogging about the Mariners, including our managing editor, Meg Rowley. It's dismaying, to find that the team you've been pulling for and the players you've been pulling for have been, subject to such mistreatment. But this really is something that I think sheds a light into the coming labor battles with regards to service time. There's no easy answer, as to how to prevent teams from doing it. You can always say that a prospect needs more time in the minors and have data that shows it. But it's the bad faith discussions that lead to it that I think typify just how rancorous this next negotiation is going to be.
Can you ever recall an offseason where we've seen so many front office personnel lose their jobs because of utter stupidity, whether it's things that are happening now or things that just happened years ago, like the whole Mets organization?
Oh, geez. It's I don't have a running total in my head, but yes, it does certainly seem like we've seen more of them than ever. I mean, I think I don't see an easy comparison. I mean, for Mather, maybe you go back to Al Campanis in 1987, but for the widespread loss of jobs of middle management. It's a bit it's the total is a bit higher than that.
It is. It's surprising, yet again, this is what we've kind of turned into. And I'll tell you this much: if people in baseball don't get the hint that you can't open your mouth, say something stupid, and attempt to get away with it nowadays, it just blows my mind. It really does. Because right now, people should be more on high alert more now than ever before. And some of this stuff might have been able to get swept through the rug because things just weren't as advanced through the internet, social media, technology like there is right now, Jay. But people just have to understand that, hey, you do something really stupid, you're probably going to pay for it with your job.
Yeah, and I mean, in the case of the Mets, I mean, these are things that happened a couple of years ago in most cases here. So, it's a reckoning that is overdue. But it should put everybody on notice that, especially with the league, I think belatedly taking steps to to implement stronger policies and protections, including the third party hotline to handle such complaints. And the posting of notices in every clubhouse, about harassment. But it's going to take years before we really see if this is a turning point for this kind of behavior.
Hey, meanwhile, it's been a tough week for top prospects and injuries. Clark Schmidt's one of the top young arms in the game with the Yankees. He's got some elbow problems. Luckily, it's not related to his UCL, but still, it's going to sideline him 3 to 4 weeks, where he's going to miss the opening start of opening day for the Yanks. And then we find out today that Royce Lewis is going to miss the whole season with a torn ACL, which is a big, big blow to the Twins and one of the more exciting young prospects in the game. And you hate to have injuries come down the way they have been, but especially when it's taken away some of the top prospects like we've got now.
Yeah, I mean, with Lewis, I mean, this is the overall number 1 pick of the 2017 draft, and he spent last season at the alternate site, so he didn't get any real minor league action. So this is 2 lost years in a row for him. He's losing all of what's going to be his age 21 and 22 seasons. That is a severe blow in terms of what you're thinking his ceiling might be. This is a guy who's really not much younger than Fernando Tatis Jr., who's just signed a $340 million contract, and the outcome, the difference in outcomes is striking, to say the least.
Jay Jaffe back with us from Fangraphs.com as we continue talking baseball here on the program. In fact, Jay, a couple of your recent stories you wrote about the Mets and Taijuan Walker this week. Shin-Soo Choo going back home to South Korea, which is a little surprising because he was rumored to have landed another big league job, a particular good one a couple of weeks ago prior to the decision. And also Oliver Perez. That is amazing. 39 years old. I haven't heard that name in a while. And he is back with Cleveland. So kind of a busy week in terms of some of the stories that you've been writing about on Fangraphs.
Yeah, some of these are fairly minor stories, but every now and then a name comes across the wire and it clicks. And Oliver Perez is a guy who I remember him being kind of a free agent bust with the Mets, and before that, kind of an unlikely hero for several innings in that NLCS Game 7 in 2006, when he left with a tie score. But he has been plying his trade as a lefty reliever for now a decade, and he's become a respected elder statesman within the game, and really has put up some pretty solid numbers. Within the context of the lefty specialist, and it's cool to see him keep going. Shin-Soo Choo, a guy who I always thought was an underrated player. Contract with the Rangers didn't really work out for the most part. A lot of injuries, a lot of age-related decline, but by all accounts, just conducted himself as a very upstanding individual, great teammate, great mentor. Last year, he gave $1,000 to every Rangers minor leaguer when their season was canceled. I mean, no strings attached. Donated some money to the Rangers academy in West Dallas for kids, for lighted batting cages and stuff like that. And now he's going full circle. He's going back to South Korea. He never played in the KBO. He was kind of a trailblazer, only the second Korean-born position player to make it in the major leagues. kind of bypass that league. But now he's going to get a hero's welcome there with the team, I guess formerly known as the SK Wyverns. They're due for a renaming and rebranding here because they've been sold to another conglomerate. The team names there are based on the corporations that own them, not the cities. But fun to see that. But the other article you didn't mention was I took a look at Fernando Tatis Jr.'s chances at the Hall of Fame, and it seems ridiculous because we're talking about a guy who's just in his second or heading into his third big league season after two that are comparatively incomplete, only 143 games under his belt. But what I found is that players who perform at the level that he has, through their age 21 seasons, and that's really the key. Age 21, you can't compare him to what a 25-year-old did or even a 23-year-old. But guys who do what he's done through age 21, more often than not, to like 2/3 to 3/4 wind up in the Hall of Fame. And it seems ridiculous to be talking about something like that 25 years down the road. But it was a fun thing that I uncovered, and it goes hand in hand with the fact that he's just gotten the longest contract in Major League history and one of the most lucrative.
I wonder also, is he's going to be on the short list. There hasn't probably been a ton of guys that have been able to break into the game at that young of an age and had that kind of an impact by the time they're 21.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. I mean, there are some guys. I mean, it's if you come up at 21, you're a special player because teams clearly think highly of you. If you come up as a teenager, even more so. Think of Mike Trout and Bryce Harper a few years ago. You can go back and think of a handful of other teenagers, but you're a special player whose development is accelerated. So if you're already Juan Soto of the Nationals, another guy who's kind of in a similar boat. I'll be taking a look at him in the same context here in the not too distant future. But that was a fun one to write, and certainly its premise got a lot of people riled up on social media. And I can't say I didn't enjoy watching people kind of bash each other over the heads with folding chairs on that one.
Did you get a lot of commentary from Dodgers fans? Because I'm sure that they're probably one that just can't stand it.
It wasn't so much Dodgers fans. It was just in general. I mean, I said I know you're I wrote it. I know you're sitting there thinking, whoa, let's pump the brakes on this one. And like 2 minutes after I posted the link to the thing on Twitter, somebody said, whoa, let's pump the brakes on this one. Clearly having not read the article. And I was like, I literally anticipated this comment.
That's
so
awesome.
that was kind of funny.
Tell me what you have coming up next couple of days at Fangraphs, what you're going to be writing about.
Right now I am writing about Scott Kazmir, who is signed a minor league deal with the Giants. He's been out of the majors since 2016. He actually spent some time in the independent Constellation Energy League, which was kind of a pop-up indie league based in Sugar Land, Texas. So not within your state.
Yeah.
And I when I learned about this, I fell down a rabbit hole, Steve. There were multiple pop-up indie leagues last year that were caused by the cancellation of the minor league season. And then the restrictions on travel, multiple franchises kind of banded together to form these leagues where they played. There was one in New York and New Jersey that played in 3 different ballparks. The one in Sugar Land just had, I think, 1 ballpark. And there was one in Indiana that I think had just 1 ballpark. But just going through the lists of players is just the ultimate, like, remember some guys opportunity. I mean, just these random ex prospects and former players. Fernando Rodney pitched an inning in the Consolidated Energy League. Rafael Palmeiro's kid was there. Wow. There's one of the Consolidated Energy Leagues was had a Team Texas that was managed by Roger Clemens and one of his sons, and featured two more of his sons playing on the team. So I spent like 2 hours just looking at that. And I was like, oh my God, there's a story here. It's partially about Scott Kazmir, but it's partially about like this whole scene that we didn't even know. So
I love that.
That was kind of interesting. And like I said, I might get to the Juan Soto Hall of Fame meter thing later this week as well.
By the way, the Giants have the All Reclamation Project team. In terms of rotations, I don't think I've ever seen a club build it like they are right now because there are so many names. You mentioned Casimir. Aaron Sanchez is another one. And you've got Cueto coming off the Tommy John, but he's not really a cast off. But a lot of other guys have joined up. They got rid of all the young kids, and now it's like a free-for-all to try to see who can make that staff.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a new regime there. Farhan Zaidi, who used to be the general manager of the Dodgers, is now the president of baseball operations there. They're going a new direction. They're in the throes of a rebuilding process, so they're kind of throwing a lot of stuff against the wall to see what sticks. They re-signed Kevin Gausman, who had a really nice season with them last year. I imagine they are one of many teams, and I think most teams are kind of in this position where ramping back up from 60 games to 162, that's a lot of innings to cover and a lot of concerns about workloads and things like that. In some ways, it's not unlike wartime baseball, because you're going to see a lot of guys you haven't seen in a long time, maybe getting shots that they might not have otherwise gotten just because of the unique circumstances here.
Now, let's wrap it up. Beer pick of the week. That's going to be coming up at fangraphs.com. Jay has always mentioned the Luponic Distortion IPA series from Firestone Walker Brewing Company in California. So when I was over at Whole Foods this weekend and I found myself a can, I wanted to try it and say, hey, this is really cool. And I'll tell you something, hints of lime, blueberry, and pomelo. Checks in at 5.9%, but this was a very hoppy, delicious beer. And Jay, when I had it, I said, you know what? Now I can appreciate your Luponic Distortion reviews a little bit more because I like this a lot. And I said, you know what? Let me at least talk about the newest IPA, Luponic Distortion from Firestone Walker before I bring you in.
Nice. What hops did they use for that one? Because they rotate out the hops.
They do. And I will give you the specific hop details on this one as you come up with yours. So give me a second to find it because I see here. Actually, what they're saying is they call it a mind-bending hop blend. But let me see if they actually say it's just a the brewery-sponsored hop from the Yakima Valley is what they talked about. But they say flavor-wise, let's see if they give us the hops. They're saying
you mull that. I'll talk about mine. So I have a friend. I have a friend who runs the craft beer aisle at a kind of an upscale market in the East Village. And once in a while, pre-pandemic, I would go into the city to get some craft beers from him. The beer that I had last week on here, the other half robust London Porter, he was able to get his hands on some, and so I paid him a visit and I picked up some other stuff that he's got. This is the Toppling Goliath Pseudo Sioux Pale Ale. Toppling Goliath is a brewery in Iowa, and they're very well regarded. And this is a beer that gets a 100 rating on Beer Advocate. Wow. I've known of its existence. I'd never had it before, and he had it in stock and was one that he recommended. It's a Citra-based beer, and how much I love my Citras. This one had grapefruit, candied orange, I would say, mango, and with a very piney finish. It was a much more bitter finish than the hazy New England IPAs or Northeast IPAs, whatever you want to call them, that I'm drinking so much of in Brooklyn these days. It was a nice change. I only got one can of it, so I had to savor it. I did get one other beer by them whose name escapes me. I think it's called SOS. But I'm looking forward to trying that one as well. But if you can get Toppling Goliath in your neck of the woods, I would highly recommend checking them out.
I will look for it. Meanwhile, here's the answer to your hop questions. One is from the Yakima Valley, which they say is super pungent and has the flavor to the pomelo fruit, also known as the Citrus Maxima. Then they've got a hop from the Willamette Valley with a distinct berry character. And then finally, they blend it with 3 classic American sea hops to round out the citrus notes, which include suggestions of lime peel and grapefruit. So nice. That is hence the Luponic Distortion, correct?
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Sounds great.
I'll tell you, you're in heaven, we're in heaven. Good way for us to wrap things up with our beer picks of the week. Jay, until next week, thanks as always for the time.
All right. Thanks, Steve.